Welcome to the Spiritual Underground Podcast. This is Dan coming to you from the studios at DTM Enterprises, my little wood shop in my backyard here where we do most of the recording for this podcast. I will let you know that this is a recovery-based podcast, primarily 12-step recovery. We do explore other avenues of recovery. You can find out some of that stuff by going to spiritualunderground.org. I am interested in all ways that people come to recover their true spirits and become who that power out there has meant for us to be. Some might say who God meant for me to be. So I'm interested in that. So this podcast explores those things. If this is the first time you have tuned in here. 12-Step Spiritual Recovery is a book by James Christopher Cone. Is available on Amazon. It is the master's level of 12-step. It's a lot of what's in that blue book, our Alcoholics Anonymous book. A lot of what we get passed down is tribal knowledge, and this is a version of that where most of that tribal knowledge has been documented. It also has an element that allows people who are not necessarily alcoholics and addicts to harness these 12-step tools. So it does not limit you to that. We have 4 meetings going on in the Louisville metropolitan area. If you go to that spiritualunderground.org, you can contact me and get some information about that. There's also a website called 12stepspiritualrecovery.com. You can go there. DTMWW.net's my little woodwork handyman business. If you're in the Louisville metropolitan area, contact me if you want some woodwork or some handyman work done. And finally, the music wrapped around this is by Darren Frank, one of my brothers in my home group. He has graciously allowed me to use his music for the intros and outros on this podcast. So we will get to the business at hand today. I have another guest. This is like the third in a row that I met. The first time I met him was in the driveway as they arrived, and I kind of like that because one of the things about this is I get a new friend by the end of this podcast, and I get to know somebody's story, and I selfishly get to hear it all by myself. Now and again, we invite, or we always are open to allow guests to come in, but they sometimes they're here and sometimes they are not. Y'all heard Anthony's story a month ago or something like that. He just celebrated 1 year, and Anthony had introduced me to this gentleman today. He was interested in possibly starting his own podcast, and I said, well, what better way to do that than to come on over and we'll record your story. So James is here in the studio. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, I'm glad you came by, man. It's a little bit cold winter night here. I had to take some time to get the shop somewhat warmed up. I think it says it's 60 in here. That's survivable.
Yeah, that's good for me.
Yeah. So we'll just go ahead and get started, man. The first thing I usually ask people is what their sobriety date is.
All right, so it's May 28th, 2013.
2013, so that would put you just past 6 years.
Yeah. Coming up on 7.
Yeah, not just past, but it'll be the most. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. You know how it is.
Yeah. I had my last guest. He still is not clear. He was that fogged up. He said it's the 14th or 15th, but it was 20 years ago too.
Yeah.
So, I find that a little bit interesting when somebody is a little fuzzy on their sobriety date. It's a really important date to me. And like when somebody, I have another friend who was sober for quite some time before he came into rooms. And so he really doesn't know because it wasn't an aim when he stopped.
Yeah.
He just stopped one day and tried to stop drinking, and he successfully did that. Mm-hmm. And he went, like 3 years before he came to a meeting.
Sure.
And that's an interesting gateway to,
Sure.
That is this thing works a lot of different ways. So usually what we do is start here, and you can tell it however it comes to you. I've had a couple people, interestingly enough, talk about they started at the day they hit their bottom. They were, for whatever reason, but I do like to go back and hear about where you were born and what kind of family system you grew up in to the best that you feel like sharing. And so I will turn the microphone over to you. We do this like a conversation. What I want to do is make it look, my thought of this is 2 guys sitting across the kitchen table talking,
sure,
rather than a monologue.
No, I get it. Yeah, I was born on Poplar Level. I don't know what that hospital's called, but I should. Right next to St. X.
Here in Louisville.
In Louisville. And we lived in Portland My parents were both in law school or just recently out and waiting to take the bar. And my grandparents on my dad's side were from Pennsylvania. They worked in a factory. And my grandparents on my mom's side were they were doctors in Louisville. Worked at St. Mary's, I believe, and they had an independent practice. But I think that my grandmother worked at St. Mary's for some time, and you know, I'm not 100% on that, but so it was two very different dynamics. They both went to Center College, and then they moved to Louisville to go to Brandeis School of Law, and we lived there. They got divorced maybe a year and a half, 2 years after I was born, and so we started moving a lot.
Yeah.
My dad moved out to out by Tinseltown. All right, yeah, he moved to Breckenridge Square for a while, and then later on moved out by Tinseltown as his law practice started to take off, and Mom got a job at Humana doing decredentialing, which was sort of funny because she was making, her parents were both doctors, and so for the insurance side to be decredentialing the doctors who were involved in suits, I mean, that's just part of the game. But and so we moved around, started to kind of move east, landed in the Highlands and Crescent Hill a bunch. I stayed with my mom a lot. I stayed with my dad on the weekend some, and that's kind of how it started. I mean, how far you want me to go? I can chase that tail
that's
all
cool.
the way.
No, whatever you feel like sharing, to be honest. And what I want to do is just lead up to, well, one of the things I'm hearing is that you didn't come. It sounded like a relatively healthy household. I mean, except for
Sure.
I would say, divorce could obviously be a little bit of a trauma on a child.
Yeah.
If you were very young. It sounded like you said a year or so old, year and a
I
half
was like
old or
2
so.
years.
So you really didn't even know what happened.
No, I
so
don't
it
have
was
any
just
recollection.
the separated parents were normal. That was the way it was all as far as you knew.
100%. They drank pretty heavily.
Oh, did they?
And I had a lot of young experiences with them being, incapacitated. Not conscious of it, of anything going on. And I started to go from school to school as we started to move around a lot. I think we've lived in 12 or 13 different places before
Wow,
I was
yeah.
13, which was a lot of different schools. One of the things that I think is applicable to recovery for me is that I found a lot of fast friends, and that I found out in time that fast friends are not really good friends. They're actually really bad friends.
Oh.
And so that was something that it took me a long time to kind of come to grips with, because pretty much all of the friends that I had were fast friends, because we moved so regularly.
Yeah.
Which gave me, it gave me the chameleon opportunity, because we moved from, Bick Elementary down in Portland on 32nd Street. And then, in fifth grade, I moved to Our Lady of Lourdes, a Catholic school in St. Matthews. And there were 5 or 6 schools in between those 2 points. But
you could learn if there's some kind of personality thing or something wasn't working over here. Well, I'll just leave it, and I get a fresh start now.
No big deal. Yeah. I found out early I was really good at math. I excelled in some analytical areas.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, we went to Our Lady of Lourdes. I really did not have a very good time at Lourdes. I had one of my teachers would bully me quite a bit. I think it's because I was new, and I really don't know. I had a social issue with my peers and a social issue with one of my teachers. He would, punch me and other things, and I took that to my parents.
Physical.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
He's still in prison over it. So,
is he? Wow.
Yeah, not over me.
But over his behaviors.
Yeah, I took it to my parents, and I was like, we went and sat with the principal at the time, and I said, this guy's being physically abusive in class. Like, there's a lot of witnesses. And they, my parents just told me specifically that, he's the authority. We trust him.
Oh, wow.
And we don't trust you, which kind of created a unique boundary in fifth grade. I was maybe sophomore in high school by the time he went to prison for the rest of his life. So, or for the majority of his life, he beat up on some girls and some other stuff. And not to talk down about Our Lady of Lourdes, everybody's got their own philosophy.
Right, yeah.
It's just like child molester priests, it's part of life. I mean, whether we want to accept it or not.
Yeah, we got these doggone humans running around.
Yeah.
They do
Defective
stuff
relations,
less
right,
than...
right. So that I didn't really drink or anything. I did not find it very easy socially at Our Lady of Lourdes. It was, it's a funny dynamic today. I have a different perspective of my peers while I was there. At the time, I looked up to them as they were rich and I was poor. Today, none of them would have that perspective. It would be a very different philosophy, which is ironic.
Yeah.
But for the grace of God, there go I. I mean, I could have treated people poorly my whole life and had terrible results too. I mean, I don't really know, but
yeah, that whole thing about perception, and I've heard more than as I do this thing over and over again. I've heard a number of times of people believing that they were less, they were
100%
poorer in their family upbringing than what they thought.
Sure.
And I call them bell ringers. There seems to be these things that like you can say, and it's like, if I had a chalkboard over, I could go ding, yep, check mark on the way to alcoholism.
Yeah, and my parents, my dad became a judge, and was a judge for a long time. He was a very good judge. He was liked. My mom was doing good at her job, and so we were pretty comfortable for a while. We had some step-parent issues, more so with one of my siblings than with me, where she did not get along with them. And so I remember as I was, there were opportunities for me to drink and do drugs going through grade school, and they were not very, it just wasn't appealing. I didn't have any interest. I had too much stuff going on, and I was sort of kind of trying to not follow the same path as I had just watched, kind of crumble the situation around me on several occasions. And so anyway, one day I find some pot that, was a family member of mine's, and they were dishonest, and I knew it. And it was like the first time, and I always try and bring that to the attention. There's a couple things that I always think are fundamental for me, at least. They were fundamental. It was the idea that my family is not necessarily always going to be honest with me, and that I might not always, I might not believe them. I might know that they're lying to me, and they're going to continue to do so. And anyway, so that was a big turning point for me. And so that weekend, some friends had called and were like, "Hey, you want to come over and get drunk and smoke some pot?" And I said, "Sure." And I stayed over there and just did stuff like that, like that was, for a while, that was kind of my lifestyle, was just drinking and smoking weed and going to school. And I ended up not finishing high school. I moved, I was at Trinity High School, and I ended up dropping out of there a year early. And I went to Wagner momentarily, and then I went to a couple other schools, but didn't really make it.
A handful of high schools.
Yeah, I went to a handful of every level schools. Yeah. There was not.
That's tough. I would think. That's a perception thing from my end. I was a kid who grew up and stayed in the exact same house. As a matter of fact, I still live in it. And I moved out for a while. I'm not still living with mom and dad at 50. I come back and bought their house, but I stayed. I went to this, every school for me.
Yeah.
I went the entirety from the beginning, and they're all walking distance from here.
No, that's funny.
So that's just the difference.
100%.
Interesting. I can't imagine, but I remember the kids who came knew.
Yeah.
When the new kid came, and to now looking back at how difficult that, I could see that. I knew it back in my heart then that it was difficult
Sure.
for them to try and fit in with this whole new crowd. Here they are.
Sure.
Poof, landed. Aliens dropped them into school, and now got to make friends.
Yeah, and so the school, Lourdes, the wealthier school is just not the same type of friends. The loyalty is different. Like, and I say that today, you know, and I hate that because, but like there is a type of loyal, like I don't know how to say it politely, but the fact is, like,
It doesn't have to
the
be
poorer
polite.
people that I know, I would trust with more of my stuff. And, you know, I have, you know, for instance, I've got these gold coins that are worth $5,000 or something like that, right? And so I would trust a friend of mine that's poor, that lives off Dixie Highway, to come and watch my house when I'm not there and have no fear. For 1 second. He probably wouldn't know what they were if he found them, but he wouldn't care if he found them. Does that make sense? He'd be more scared that he misplaced them. But some of my other friends that are, that, you know, like one of my closest friends made $25 million 2 years ago, I would not trust him around it. You know, and
yeah, I understand. I can't. I don't. I understand your difficulty in like placing that into words too about how that is.
It's just like when I work on poor people, you know, I've been doing construction for a long time. When I work on poor people's houses, they pay their tab. And I don't know why that is, but I can tell you I've got $100 million worth of invoices that show it, you know. And so it's, we can argue semantics. I don't care to argue semantics, but you know what I mean. So those are things that were hard for me. I had a very difficult time going into a new crowd of people that I felt like were very disloyal, were very dishonest, and were always trying to get ahead. And that made me very uncomfortable there. And then moving from there over to Trinity, where I really didn't know anybody from my childhood and didn't have any family that was in any way supportive. And realistically, the guys that I could affiliate with were those fast friends. I really had to, in my view, I needed to make a decision on whether it was going to just be this horrible experience, which at the time my home life had turned into parents drunk and unable to communicate after 4 o'clock, and you know, till I go to sleep, and then I would get up at 4 o'clock and I would leave because I couldn't fucking stay there anymore.
Yeah.
And so so I was sort of in this strange place of, do I go? You know, the best of two evils is the same. And so I was like, I don't give a shit. I'm not going to, you know, watch my mom and sister argue. Have my family would be pretty aggressive when they would get drunk. And I got a lot bigger, you know. And so it was, I remember one time when I was kind of being beaten on, grabbing a hand and saying, you can't fucking hurt me, you know. Yeah. Like, you better hope I don't get mad. And, you know, and I wouldn't get mad at them for that. I knew it was some fucked up thing in their head from their childhood, but it didn't feel good being there. And so when I would, you know, and I love my family. I would do and do more for my family than I think most people who say they care a lot about their family do, and at least financially, or in time. Today,
what I'm hearing is you really didn't want to be at home.
I didn't want to be at home, and I didn't want to be with fucked up people. And so the only two options I could find were, you know, the other kids who didn't have anybody at home and being at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was it.
Yeah, bug out and go hang out.
We used to
friends.
go for Christmas every year, and I know, and I hope my family doesn't listen to this because they probably don't know this, but we for Christmas every year would go and drive up to Paoli and walk around the snow slopes with several people. Most of them are dead now, from drug addiction.
Yeah.
And we just called each other the family.
Yeah.
And other things, and just, you know, very close friends. And Anthony and I became very close friends a little bit later on in that period of time. So I didn't, you know, I found a job. I got a really good job when I was, you know, so anyway, I drop out of high school. I take my GED exam. I do really well on the ACT. And then I did really well on an entrance exam to U of L. It was the only place I applied. The GED sucked, but the ACT was, they let me come. And then I passed half the classes, and I was lucky enough to, you know, start in calculus instead of starting, you know, I never took pre-calculus or trig or any of the other shit, but I mean, it was pretty straightforward. I'm pretty good at that stuff.
Gifted.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at that specifically, but that type of analytics. Anyway, so I got an MIW taken out against me, and I went into downtown Louisville's University Hospital, and a mental inquest warrant. And anyway, they let me out. I had a bunch of issues revolving around chemical dependency at that time, fighting and drinking. But I'll tell you, they were all related to drugs and alcohol. I've never had any kind of criminal activity that's like not,
When I'm clean and sober, I'm just not doing that stuff.
I just don't do anything like that. Yeah, I mean, like, there's no way, like, I had picked up a Black and Mild and meant to buy it, bought my groceries, and still had it, and I hadn't left the store, but they arrested me saying I was trying to steal and
a cigar.
I was like, man, I just spent $200. Can you guys, like, I'll buy all your Black and Milds.
Yeah.
I don't care, like, please don't waste my time.
And you got arrested for that, huh?
I did, yeah.
Wow.
Because they were like, you tell us that you were trying to steal it, blah, blah, blah. I was like, dude, I just bought $200 worth of groceries, man. Yeah. It's behind my ear. You could have just been like, hey, man.
Yeah, what's that, $1?
It wasn't it could have been $1.
Yeah. That's interesting to get.
So, but I had been drinking the night before, and so I was really hungover, and I was supposed to go see my grandmother, and so my grandmother was in town to see my dad. Anyway, long story short.
Yeah.
So that sort of stuff started happening. I had I was partying too much. I ended up in the hospital, and then when I came out of there, I got sober when I was 20, and I got, which was, 15 years ago now.
Yeah.
And I got a great job working for a medical device company. They were going to be selling. Early in recovery, I got a job, and so they needed. One of the things you do during a merger deal is you find out how much your income looks like, so that they can find out what your buyout price looks like. And so anyway, we expedited a whole bunch of billing, and which everybody does, and they were bought out, and so they paid me pretty well to get through that stuff. It was. And I went to undergrad. I got an undergrad degree in optical physics. I worked in nanophysics for a while, and then, and then 2009, I actually I graduated in 2009, so it was a couple years behind, but it was still in the game, you know. And so 2009, the economy falls apart. I go to a job interview. We'd lose half our funding almost immediately. They pull all the funding from the projects that are not war related, any kind of grant money all of our money went away, and so my job kind of became obsolete pretty quickly.
Oh wow.
And so then I went and started looking for jobs. There was an insurance company that would give you a job if you could go get your health and insurance license. So I read a book and went and got my health and insurance license and went and worked. I go to this job interview and I'm wearing my nicest suit. You know what I mean? I've been being pretty well paid for a while. And so, and there was a standing room, maybe, about, let's say half this room. About half this room was, so there was probably like 100 people for this one shitty insurance rep job. In this space, standing, sitting, filling out their paperwork, filed out the building, and there was no work. There was no money. I mean, there was I think it was okay money. I mean, you know what I mean. I could hustle up, and then we weren't really paying out our benefits, and I was sober, and so it seemed like we were, you know what I mean, kind of catching people, and it was below my ethical boundary.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. This is not sitting with my.
It did not make me feel comfortable. Yeah. I mean, I did well at sales, but I just explained to them what they had told me. But it didn't seem, the application seemed flawed in comparison to the description. So I gave that up, and we did some medical device sales around, and I was working with a pharmaceutical company that that sold some very specific types of substances that people are very addicted to, and I missed work one day because I didn't feel good, and my boss was like, just take, and I know that people don't really, I mean, I don't know how it's done right now. I mean, the FDA has kicked up like a mug because of the opioid epidemic, but they used to come in like, Tussinex cough syrup used to come in a bottle like that bottle of oil, you know what I mean? Like, and then you disperse it yourself. You get a manufacturer plant that, puts it in other stuff, or you take it to the pharmacy. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and so.
Yeah, it used to be everywhere.
Yeah, it doesn't come in the, they don't come in little pharmaceutical bottles. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So
and there's machines that count pills, and there's all kinds of codes, and there's all kinds of lockdown around that stuff now.
Once you get to pharmacy, once you get to off the manufacturing, off the distribution, I mean, I think that the deregulation on that end of the game is potentially problematic, but we don't see gaping wounds in that side of the industry. So it's like, it's kind of ironic that like the side where you can actually tap into a resource, anyway, just it's not the side that gets exploited, right? Like the side that gets exploited is the sick people who need a little bit of extra cash. The other people are making so much money off insurance that there's no need to tap into it. Well, I think I was 7 years sober, and I went to my sponsor, and I was like, I need to, I'm sick. I need, you know what I mean? I'm going to, actually, one of the things, I had torn a tendon in my finger, and I had torn a tendon in my ankle. And so I was on rehab, physical therapy, and I was allowed to take, they were prescribing me opiates for those two things, which I loved. Yeah, because they would give me whatever I wanted, because I had been working with them and knew every doctor around for, the East Coast. I mean, I probably had 6,000 doctors' phone numbers in my phone, and probably still have 3,500 or so. And so
you could get all you wanted, basically.
I get whatever I wanted, just hit them up.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that sounds terrible, but if today I wanted a prescription of anything I wanted that they prescribed, fentanyl or something, I could just have them drop it in my pharmacy.
Really?
There's no question.
Wow.
And, and not to be prejudicial against the people I know. I mean, one of the things I've always thought was so confusing is that the social dynamic within doctors, milieu is so astray, right? Like, so the doctors are held to such esteem financially and with their responsibility load that the nurses, they don't communicate well together. And so they never see anybody they can communicate with. There's nobody else at the hospital making $500,000 a year. You know what I mean? The only people they see on a regular basis making $400 plus a year are other reps or execs. Well, they're definitely not going to mess with the execs. They've got their own tax issues they're trying to weasel through, and so they might see a rep, and so that creates a very specific type of relationship where you guys can kind of like calm down together at the end of the day. Like it's been hustle and bustle, and now you're both free. And,
so you were sober for a while, and then you had this 7 years, issue, and decided.
Took the meds. My boss was like, just take whatever you want. So I thought that meant I just took whatever I wanted.
Exactly what he told you to do. Take whatever you want. Okay.
And
so you had a sponsor?
I did. Oh, yeah.
I had several beforehand, or did you just do this?
I've got a sponsee now with 13 years that when I came back has just recently asked me to sponsor him again. And I did not have a problem with painkillers before I got prescribed for my hand and my foot. And so in my head, it was not
the same deal.
I wasn't in as much jeopardy. You know what I mean? And honestly, at first, I don't think I was in that much jeopardy. It was when they kept prescribing them, because it's two things that I use all the time. and so I'm always on my feet and I'm always using my hands, and there's no way really to mitigate that other than doing physical therapy and doing some pain management. And so,
Well, how many times we around here, people, well, I don't really have a problem with that, so I can do that.
oh, I hear that shit all the time.
Yeah.
And like, I'm like, you got to take it. I don't, my response to that every time is, I don't know anybody in this room's sobriety date, but what I know is how they treat me when I get here. I know how they treat each other when I see them in an altercation, and if you can be the person that allows you to be, doing God's will on a daily basis, and you can be taking meds, I don't care. That's your business. You don't preach it to me.
Yeah.
Because my world will crumble. And so that's what happened. It crumbled. I fell to zero, well below zero, and got sober again. I had been, and it's so hard because it's like you do good for so long, and you can see like that it's like the chemical dependency is like a huge motivator for my bad behavior, right? Like there's no, I don't know why I don't respond well. I just don't respond well. You give me a bunch of meds, and my thinking is like, how am I going to get more of these? Instead of like, I could probably go to work, get enough money, and stay high all the time, but I would rather quit my job, hustle up a little bit of money and go broke that way, and then grind around the bottom,
Yeah.
I don't know why. I can respect other people who have a different philosophy and are like able to go, but
I could never either. This is just not going to work for, and my history proves it.
Yeah.
So it's not like here's another famous last line, right? Not this time. I can do it.
Yeah, I can handle it this time. I know it, right? Yeah, I know. When they start talking about reservations, when you get it, when you're in the book and the question comes up of like, do I have any reservations? Like, that's why I keep going to meetings. Like, I know what you're supposed to say. No, I get that. Like, but shit, dude. Like, you're telling me, okay, so I hit the lottery. I got this place on the beach, on my own island. Like, in what world am I being honest with you? Like, that's like it is one of the most motivating things in my life. It has always been, since
I found this stuff worked for me.
Yeah, since it made me feel good. And I didn't feel good, and I really wanted to feel good. Since then, I have, and today things are great. I'll tell you, and most of my time is, spent dealing with sponsees, and we generally talk about what's going on with them, and how it is. And I try and encourage them to go do service work and get out of themselves and find ways of thinking about somebody else. Anyway, so like I was at a test. I had a test the other day, and it's like in law school, and it was very hard, and I worked very hard to try and do well on it. And I don't think I did well, but I did okay. I hope, right? And I got done, and it was just such a release of pressure. Again, it was just 30 or 40 pages of memorization on very specific types of rules associated with in-court behavior, and then application on a 650, point exam. And did I get all 650 points? No. But did I maybe get 570? Maybe, And so I was so stressed out up until the time. And then when it was over, I was like, man, I'm sure all these people are going to get drunk. And I could, for the first time since I've been in school, I could completely respect where they were at. And so I just got in my car and drove home, but called my wife. Yeah. But I could respect it because like it was a lot of pressure. Yeah. Like if you was not an alcoholic, you was going to get drunk. Yeah. Like it doesn't, I don't think it mattered. It was too much pressure.
Right. Yeah. That come down to all that build up, and there's, I can respect that. Shoot, I've done that a lot of times before it had its hooks in me that, or.
Yeah. If I was drinking, I'd have done it before the exam. That's what I would have fucking read. Yeah. So, I'm with you. So.
Yeah. I couldn't, I tried to do the college thing, but I was drinking. And I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't study. I just couldn't get to school, and I just couldn't make the classes, and the two things just would not work for this dude.
So I have a semester left on my master's, my BA, and I started using and just did not care to finish it. Yeah. Just what am I going to use that for?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got to write a couple papers. Not going to have it. And so then and I thought working at a bar sounded better. It's better plan. Long term. I was thinking long term at the time.
Yeah. That's a famous line. I have a plan.
Yeah. Well, and not only that, like as soon as I got prescribed the meds for my stuff, I immediately quit my job, moved out of the place I was living, got out of the relationship I was in. Like I left to go to school or something, and I was in a relationship with a good job. And I came home, got all my stuff, and moved out before she got home, and quit my job. And I didn't drop out of school right away, but that was one afternoon.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so you decided, okay, well, it's like a 180 right now. Boom, bang.
Right, that's right. When I decided I'm gonna get fucked up on this instead of I'm gonna take it as prescribed, it was like I'm gonna for real get fucked up on this. And,
that's interesting because I would do the hiding. I would try to keep it undercover for a while, and that would be my MO. Would be to skirt it and don't let anybody know.
Yeah, I totally get it. I mean,
but yeah, you just throw the penalty flag in
yeah.
the field, man. I'm done.
It was too much. I can't fucking take it. I quit. I've really been addressing that in my life. Like I really have a hard time. That's if you want to talk about 6 and 7. Like right now, is 6 years sober. What am I looking at as far as my defects of character? One of my primary defects of character is I do not. I first of all, when you treat me poorly, I'm not going to treat you poorly. I will just treat you evenly, right? Like I'll treat you the same, like, and be happy and nice to you. And so you'll never know that I'm pissed off. And then I will eventually, I'll be sick of being treated like that. And then everybody's like, well, we don't even know there's a problem. And I'm like, yeah, that's because you are the asshole. If I was the asshole, I would be saying, I don't know the problem. Like, I love it when people in recovery are like, I don't have any bad relationship. And it's like, bro, like, you're the asshole in all those relationships. Like, we all have fucked up. That's why we came here, is because we have fucked up relationships. Yeah. Like, I've been having fucked up relationships since the day I was born. Like, and I'm going to have them till the day that I die. If I'm not willing to accept it and look at it, then... I mean, I don't have a single sponsee that's working all the sponsees that I have that I feel like are just one, bad comment at work away from going back out and drinking are like, they're fine with everybody. And all the sponsees that are like growing and thriving and trying, they're like addressing their relationships when they have flaws. And like, it's hard. It hurts your feelings.
It does. Yeah.
I've had a negative interaction with almost every one of my family members in the last month. Wow. And my dad, it started over, and my sisters did not interact well with me when that happened. We had a conference. I was in the middle of school, right? I'm reading a lot of work, and then on top of that, I'm trying.
Something's on fire downstairs.
So we're back again. We had a little thing, and I really don't even know what's on the tail end of this tape at the moment. But all of a sudden, I looked up, and my son was running towards the podcast studio here at the wood shop with big eyes, and said there's a fire in the basement. So we got up. James and I got up and shot into the house and down in the basement, and it was full of smoke and rubber burning smell is what I noticed right off the bat. And looks like my old compressor in the basement, the belt hung up or something happened and it smoked that belt, but it sure no damage done to any extent, but it was exciting for a minute, wasn't it? Yeah. Appreciate your help. I mean, that, a lot of people wouldn't run in there with you, No, it'd be like,
rich people.
There you go. Yeah. I will sit right here. So, and that's the other thing. I probably could have rewound the tape for a minute and see what we was talking about when we left, but I'm not so sure it matters a whole lot exactly where we were at. So you had, I know one thing where you had hit this wall and you were you officially relapsed and
Oh, yeah,
moved
yeah.
out, got
Yeah.
your girlfriend, went to your girlfriend's house and got all your stuff and
Yeah, and at that point, my dad had been gone away, and he was going through some financial stuff, and so we helped to get all that situated, and then I moved in with another friend of mine, and just sort of was off to the races. I like to, one of the things that was helpful to me early on in my recovery, and I use a lot today, is the idea of my last run, and more so than this dialogue, but more like from my view, like at the time, because when I'm new, I have a different perspective, and a lot of times I still think a lot of the stuff that I was doing was pretty, like, for a long time I thought a lot of the stuff that I did that I found out today was doing a lot of damage to people I care about. I thought that it was actually being a caring family member and friend, and anyway, so I just anyway, I don't know where I was going with that, but when I write down my last run, there's always a place in there where I started and it wasn't a problem, and then there's a place where everyone else noticed that there was a problem, and then there's a place where I noticed there was a problem.
Yeah.
And a lot of damage is usually done for me in my life, and I don't know if everybody's different, and I don't ever try and impress my experience on other people just to share it and hope that maybe somebody who needs to hear it will hear it when they are supposed to. And in whatever way we cross paths, that's the way that it's supposed to happen in God's world instead of my world, right? And,
Right.
But a lot of damage for me always gets done between where they start to notice and where I finally notice and am willing to say. And so that's something I like to go over with my sponsees. And I've been looking at that a lot recently. I think what we were talking about before we left was the idea on 6 and 7 about giving up my my relationships real easy, because that is something that has been a little bit difficult for me. So anyway, I was getting into the weeds a little bit about the situation with my family. Anyway, I haven't communicated well, which I know is like some of them are in recovery and actively working a program, and some of them are actively using, and some of them are, not in the program and not using. And so it's funny, but I've had a lot of disconnects. And so, I kind of set like a baseline expectation, which I know is a bad idea, but in my family where I really don't feel like I can leave as easily as other relationships, I kind of have to lay out on the line that, like, this is where I need you to be. Like, if I'm going to be here and be fully supporting your decisions and you and getting behind all these people that you bring in and out of my life and your social interaction decisions and other things, and I'm going to help with my time and my money and my life and my wife's life, then anyway, those were not adhered to. And that feels like disloyalty. It does not feel like what I have grown to expect out of friends socially or family or loved ones or anything like that. And so, like I said, I'm not, I don't do a good job of showing you when you're fucking me over. Like, I just take it on the chin and I keep moving, and I hope that you're going to learn and come back and be like, this is, I was fucked up a couple days ago, and like, this is where I want to be and what I meant, but this happened. And I don't mind if they don't, but if they do, that's great, because that builds a relationship. Like, that's
Right,
to
yeah.
me, that's the whole epitome of growing together. Like, we both have to be growing for us to be growing together. Like,
Yeah.
it's not that's growing together, and
Well, that's what we find. Like, you used to talk about fast friends and that kind of thing. And even today,
Yeah.
I mean, I found myself on this growth trajectory, and I desire that today. That's what I feel
Oh,
myself.
100%.
That's my substitute today. And and frankly, if that's not in yours, I mean, it doesn't mean that we can't be friends or anything like that, but it probably means we're probably not going to be close friends.
sure.
Because it's like running a race or jogging on a track or
100%.
whatever. And if one person is not keeping up,
Right.
then
And then
it's
you
all
have
behind.
the hardest part about that for me is that there's these ethical lines that I am unwilling to cross, and like, and I'll share an experience. I was in a business deal with somebody in the program that was one of my dad's sponsees, and he and I were going to do a renovation project, and I've been running a really substantial renovation company for a while at the time. We were doing this as a side project. He found the project. Another guy who's in the program calls and says, hey, I want to cut dude out. So let's just, he's not bringing anything to the table. Let's just cut him out of the equation and do it ourselves. And I was like, no, you got the wrong guy. Maybe you should, next deal. You know what I mean? When this deal's done, maybe on the next deal you can get in. And so then he calls the other dude and didn't tell me, and they ran this whole shit and like told everybody I was crazy and like did this thing, and then it turned out that he was that they had done this deal behind my back. And like that was just like, because to me I was just having a difficult time communicating, because like when I'm fucking you and I know it and you don't know it, I don't communicate with you the same. Yeah. And then you might be like, why is he being an asshole all the time, like, and I'm thinking, oh, we're good, I'm getting over on him, and so it made this whole dynamic fucked up where my dad and a couple other guys in recovery were like, talking shit, and like, so I was given, a lot of people in recovery jobs, we had a policy of giving 100 felons a year a job, in addition to a ton of other people. And in building other people's careers, we were trying to give them the tools they needed and set them up for success and move them in the right direction. That didn't turn out to be a successful venture, but it was a good idea. And yeah. I think that with a little fine tuning, it could get there. Either way, we had access to a whole bunch of opportunity, and we had made a whole bunch of financial growth. But I was not willing to cheat this guy, even though he really wasn't bringing very much to the table. He wasn't bringing anything to the table. Yeah. I was showing him what we were doing. We were going to bring him into the game. And like, I like it when my friends make money. I don't want to be the only fucker sitting at a table eating dinner. You know what I mean? I want to have some people with me. Yeah. Where we can go get a steak and chill out, Life's hard, and I'm not drinking, and I don't do drugs, and those are my best coping mechanisms. So in order for me to socialize, I got to feel like there's a dinner plan or something, or this, or a podcast, something that you care about or I care about, or we're breaking bread together. And so anyway, after the long and the short of it is dude's in prison now, one of the dudes, for robbing another company that is a girl in the program's dad's company that she hooked him up with on some other bullshit, right? And the other dude looks like he's dying, and one of the other guys just got out of rehab. And I'm like, you guys could have just not fucked anybody over. Yeah. You know what I mean? You're broke is a joke. You made it nowhere. You made it to your wife's living off your dad and like nothing, and that is who I am when I drink. Yeah. I'm nothing. I have nothing. And it's sad for me to see myself in them, and it's sad to know that I've been that person. I'm capable of doing it today. That's why I keep going to meetings. That's why I keep reading this shit. Yep, that's it.
But I didn't, like before, I said, I found out that I can't do it any other way. Yeah, I am incapable. Yes, I just keep operating some other way. All the other ways have failed for me. Man, so this is working really good. So I'm gonna keep doing this. Yeah.
So, and so one of the biggest defects that I'm having right now is that I want to abandon relationships. And so when everybody called to say, what are we doing for Christmas? I told my whole family that you need to take me off the text stream. I'm not interested. And I could get into the ins and outs of why that is, but it really feels like you get to feeling sometimes, for me, like you had an opportunity here to be a kind of a crutch for me to learning how to do this, right? This podcast, which I appreciate, and that's why I come and I try to be honest and bring what I can, and hopefully it's helpful. And hopefully I'll be able to repay the favor in another way in the future. But other times when people need help, like if I came over here and then, on my podcast, I'm like, man, I learned all this shit on my own. Fuck everybody who says that they helped, Yeah. Or whatever. I mean, and it's like, like it really hit, and so in recovery, I've had a difficult time with that. And right now I'm having some social issues because of, and we'll get back to earlier on, and then sort of roll back into this if that's fair. But the right now for me specifically, I'm at work where I got offered a job in Houston for $975 a year, right, which is a big deal, big check for people around here, and especially in their early 30s, right? And and I don't know if that should probably be edited out, but the fact is, I was good at it. And people respected that. And then I go to school. My wife wants to stay here. We decide we're going to stay here and build a family. And I don't get those same opportunities here. The company I was working with was moving. I might be able to, but I mean, I can compete with that number, but I got to do it independently. I got to make my own world if I do that, which is really hard. It's really great in my home life because my wife gets to be near her family, and I do too. And so we got blessed with an opportunity for me to go back to school, which is something I wanted to do since I was a kid. And so that's why I'm in law school now. And so, but one of the stories that I always love is when I first got sober, in 2013, I was working at Radio Shack for $4.75 an hour in Indiana, in Corydon, right?
Yeah.
Okay, at the Radio Shack at the Walmart, right off the highway. So it's like, and the guy that I'm living with just got out of 28 years in on a big meth bust, and so it's like, and I'm just now sober, can't make any money. I haven't worked. I'm unemployable for years, and with the exception of a few here or there things, or a little bit of credentials that sort of carried on from before, where we get residual on some stuff that we sold. It was horrible. And I was living in my mom lived on the same farm. We were all living there together, just crazy. And I started dating my wife, which I'm so lucky to have, my favorite person in the world. And I moved in with her, and we had a very rocky start, actually. I started drinking again. I tried to get sober. I started drinking again, and she drank. We'd just met, and then we ended up getting sober together. It's funny because I say May 28th. We started drinking on Thunder and woke up May 28th. I got sober. She got sober on the 29th. It wasn't like, I have no fucking clue. We didn't sleep. We had a couple days. Here and there. It wasn't like we was just, going like now. I know what day it is.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, that's like a month.
Yeah, I used to wake up with the bottle. You know what I mean? And like, just fuck it. I'm gonna go get another bottle. I'm gonna drive through the drive-through and go on to my buddy's house. Lived over in Rangeland Projects, and so I would ride over there, drink all day, and play video games, and then head on back. When my wife got done, and but then I finally got a gig, man, and I for $10 an hour they let me cut grass all week on a riding mower out in Prospect, and I had to drive about an hour and a half to get there, hour and 20 minutes to get there, and I got a car. Got out there. Actually, all I had at the time was a motorcycle that I had kept from before. And I did a lot of riding on that. And then I finally got a little Honda. And then was commuting back and forth. It was so cold on the fucking bike. It was a lot colder than it is tonight. And I'd be riding that fucking bike. Dude, it sucked.
Yeah.
But it was, I was still good, And anyway, I got a job at Prospect Lawn Care with a guy in the program, and it was a blessing. You could have told me I hit the lottery because I was so broken, and I finally had a shot, and I worked there, and I loved it. I'm not even gonna lie. I got to get guys that early in recovery on there, and I loved it. And
this is in 13 since your current sobriety date.
Yeah, my current sobriety date. It was the first job I got. Uh-huh. And then the Pigeons Roost, we went there too. We went there at least once a day, but most of the time I would try and go to two if I could get there, so every day I would go at night. We would go to the night meeting. If there was 2 meetings, we go to 2 night meetings. And then on Fridays, we would mop the floors. And then they got a new Cub Cadet out at the Pigeons Roost when Debbie Messina was working out there as the president or whatever. And then and I would cut their grass for free. And there was a lot of grass out at the roost, but it was right by my house. And so one day a week I would cut their grass for free, and then I would cut a couple friends and family stuff for free, and I would drive out and I would ride around these big Dale Roman horse farms and big farms. And the mile tracks, we cut the inside and then we cut the outside, and you know what I mean? It's just a lot of mowing, man. You're just but there were just fields, and Ryan was amazing. I don't know what the fuck I was supposed to be cutting half the time. You know what I mean? He was much better at it than I was, and he had great clients, and I cherished that relationship. And he started to unwind a little bit, and we were doing some work for some guys that own a hospital in town and some other stuff, and they were partying a lot, and anyway, so I loved it though, and finally one day I couldn't take anymore. He would talk so crazy, like I'm not like okay. So there's a couple things, and I love using this experience as spiritual growth because it was so packed with spiritual growth for me, right? Like so. The first thing that I always like to recognize is that it was a really long drive, and I was completely psyched to do it because I was not too good to be driving out there. It was better than what I deserved, right? Yeah. And I got so like when I was working on so the winter came up, you know what I mean? Summer ended and winter got there, May, and I mowed through the summer, and then I got to winter, and all this snow came down, and everybody needed salt. Nobody had salt, and we were plowing, and so these trucks would come in with these 60-pound bags of salt on these pallets, and I would unload them by myself and just be fucking pissed off about these because everybody's trying to hoard the salt, you know what I mean? Because you got all the work based on the salt. And I was like, God, please make these bags of salt lighter. And so then the next truck comes in, and it's 80-pound bags of salt. So I got to unload a whole truck full of 80-pound bags of salt. The next truck comes in, it's 60-pound bags of salt. It was lighter. I swear to God, I was happy to have them. You know? And then
I'll make them lighter, but first I'm going to make them heavier.
Yeah, they feel a lot lighter now, don't they? I know. I could use that experience in a million ways in my life about coming to the challenge and learning to carry the amount of weight that you're carrying, and then going back is okay. And that's the best part of life is that we all get to do that. We get to grow to a point, and then when we feel like we're maxed out, once that gets comfortable back here, we can grow out to another point and just keep growing and growing. And that's why I continue to get back into my defective relationships with other people. But I get so I've been working for Ryan for a couple of years. I loved it. One of the stories that I always think is important for me in step 3, and this is something that I share with my sponsees, and I don't know that this is preachy or not. I don't mean it to be. It's, I was having a barbecue and I was giving out hot dogs, and I gave somebody a dog and they went and ate it, and they came back and they were like, hey, can I get a hamburger? And what I hear is, fuck you, your dogs suck. Like I want a hamburger, And so I'm like, fuck you, man. You can leave. You know what I'm saying? I'm giving out the fucking
What do you mean hamburger?
Yeah, this is my hot dogs, And, but that's how I took everything. And I was actually using that thinking to govern my life, to make my decisions. That was the type of thinking that I had. That was my best thinking. And it didn't get me anywhere. And I couldn't figure out why. And I really wasn't trying to be mean to nobody. And most of the time I had a good motive in there. And
even though our motives were good.
Yeah, 100%. So
I like that. Yeah. I mean, and we do. I can find myself operating like that today.
Dude, I do. So I get done.
I'll tell you what, I'll explain how the same thing is. I have a lot of friends that listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
They will compliment the shit out of my guests.
Oh.
Great. I really like listening to James, man. He has some good
but
stuff.
But they never really say shit about you. Oh, my God. That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you showing me how to do this shit, man. My ego needs a little love, too, every once in a while. So.
And that's not exactly true, either, because there are the ones that say that, too.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, it's not...
But it's not what you hear.
Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I totally get it.
This whole perception thing, this deal where it just, I don't know, things just don't seem to, I have to work at looking at things the way they really are. For some reason, my first guess is that somebody's out to get me. I was doing something not too long ago, and I learned some things, and was new work to me too. I do this Mankind thing, Mankind Project, and we had a thing where we was talking about the drama triangle, about how and it just hit me like I felt it, bam, and I'm either the victim, the prosecutor, or the rescuer. I'm in here with my cape on, going to save you, and then when you won't let me save you, well, you're a fucking asshole, and and then I'm over here on the victim pile because nobody likes it, nobody likes me, and I just jump from those three bases. It seems like, unless I'm working this program and keeping my awareness up and asking God to direct me. I tend to be operating in pretty dysfunctional ways most of the time without like third party intervention. I am 100%. Not a healthy person.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, the idea that there is a power greater than me is like the most foreign concept, right? Like, I need to be making these decisions. This is how we're going to get through it. Yeah,
rest, satisfaction, and happiness if I only manage well.
That's right. That's the only way I can get there. And I believed it, and I wasn't doing it out of malice, and that's why I can't be mad at people today when they do things that are shitty to me. I just try and give them an opportunity to grow, because what am I going to do? If I piss them off, then that opportunity to grow is how to deal with some asshole who just talk shit to them, not how do they learn how to be a nicer friend, or why don't they have friends and people they can socialize with, and like they might miss that whole opportunity to realize like, okay, maybe I don't have a job because I wouldn't be a good fucking employee. Maybe I don't have a wife because I'm not ready, and I need to find out what I need to do to get ready or not. Yeah. But don't bitch about it. Either start working on it or don't. You know what I mean? Like, it's be happy with it or work on it.
Serenity prayer.
That's right. That's right. And I've been having difficulty with the serenity prayer, and this is really getting deep into my own recovery. But the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, right? Like the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I really like those because those are empowering. But the serenity to, the things I cannot change, to accept the things I cannot change. Hold
on a minute.
Yeah, hold up a second, motherfucker.
Just exactly what tool am I using? I'll figure out how to change that.
You know what I'm saying? That's like giving away. And then the other two are like persevering. And it's like, because I say that prayer every morning. Like when I get up, I say a prayer first thing. And then I take time to meditate, and then I go take a shower, and then I eat breakfast, and then I do a little bit of reading, and then usually that's about 5 o'clock in the morning, 5:30, and then I'll sort of get a plan of action for my day and start to work towards it. And that's all I do. And then if I don't feel good at some point in my day, then I will stop moving forward, and I will try and not do anything fucked up until I can get a hold of some people that are going to hold me accountable and just hear what they think I'm doing wrong. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't call them because I want them to bullshit me.
Right. Yep.
I call them because I need you to be honest with me.
Right.
And if people want to call, like Anthony knows this, if you're looking for somebody to, jerk you off, you're talking to the wrong guy. Like, I'm going to be fucking mean to you, and we're going to get to the bottom of it, and we're going to move on. And it's going to feel like shit today. And that's how I stay sober, and that's how the people around me seem to stay sober. And maybe that's fucked up perspective. Maybe it's because I went to the Pigeon's Roost and they just treat you like shit sometimes. But
no, I need my recovery brothers to do that with me. Yeah. Because it does me no good for you to just coddle me and to tell me it's going to be okay and that kind of stuff. And we love each other. We do this in love and understanding and, that kind of thing, comfort. But the other side of that is, I've had a place in my life lately where, had some guys that were, telling me what I wanted to hear. Yeah. And when I realized it, I actually got my hackles up a little bit. I'm like, that's not what I need.
Right.
Hold on a minute. And I appreciate the sentiment because I know that you all were doing that in nothing but love for me too. So don't, I also don't want to push them away because they're my most valuable buddies, but I need the truth, and I need to know what's up in that department, not.
And that's what I do when I'm managing, right? Like, and so then I be putting people back in check. Like, hey, are you managing me? Like, you know what I'm saying? Are you making me feel okay with the fucking that I'm fucking shit up and you're fixing it, or like whatever?
Yeah.
Like, cause I need love. I need you to be like, yo, get your head out your ass, get back in the game. Like when I'm taking my tests and I'm scared, I need to get your chin up and get your ass in the game. You know what I mean? Read the book. If you want to do better, read it again. If you want to do good, figure out what the fuck it's saying, and because I lose track of that. I think it's like this. I gotta like learn the way they're gonna ask the questions or something. It's like, nah, man, I gotta just do a good job.
Yeah.
Which was one of the biggest things early on in recovery was I really had to come to grips with the fact that I had never tried to do a good job in anything I'd ever tried before. I had tried to do the very bare minimum, and I expected the best result for my whole life. And it was a really big growing point for me to realize that I am allowed to try hard and fail and not be mean to myself and not be mean to anybody else, and let them try hard and fail and not be mean to anybody at all. Just try and love them and understand. My wife pursued a brand new career when we first got sober, and it was a struggle because I paid the tab and we had a lot of residue from our history. And so she didn't make very much money the first year. And so I took another job. I left that job I loved, and I went to another job making, $13 an hour, but it was 614s, with no heat or no cold, big factory and welding and just metal fabrication and mandatory 614s, and sometimes it was 616s. I mean, fuck, man, and I would get done, and so I could only make it to the 8:00 roost meeting, but I could save up a little money. I learned that's the biggest lesson I've ever learned in my life, is that I may not be able to make $1 million an hour, but I can make $1,001 an hour. I can definitely put $1,010 an hour in.
Yeah.
And I can work as many of those as I fucking have to. And people will pay me less. Like if I can't find hours and I'm looking around, I can say I'll work for X amount of dollars. And if they say the no, then I can say, well, just take another dollar off and let's find the number that makes it valuable to you, because I'm ready to work. And now that's not exactly good with the labor laws, but it's how I had to find work. I had to pay my fucking bills, man. I had to pay school back. I had to pay all my taxes that were backdated. My wife's.
Yeah, well, people come around, and they like to get these jobs. They won't be employed, and they won't take a job because they feel like it's below them.
Yeah, motherfuckers are crazy, bro.
Yeah.
Like, be for
man,
real for a second, dude.
These, I always call them spiritual axioms because I really don't know what else to call them. But they're like gravity, right? Yeah. And it's easier, just flat out. There's no, ask anybody that knows anything. It's easier to get a job when you got a job.
Oh, 100%. There's no question.
Go take that job. You're not going to wait for the one.
Look, now that's just logic. Don't bring logic into recovery now. Hold on.
Yeah. Come on. And then, but they.
That's sound reasoning. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of fundamental ideas I talk to my sponsees about, and they're like mind blown.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Anyway,
they think that you're, man,
killed it. No, I mean.
But there is a lot of that stuff, and it is. And the problem with me is because just 5 years ago, I was on the flip side of that, where none of that made any sense to me. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm special. Yeah. And I don't have to do it that way.
Man.
I had a guy sit here the other day, and he said, you hear around here saying that everybody thinks they're unique, and they are. Actually, everybody is unique. He said, but what everybody is not is special.
Yeah. No, I know. Yeah. Well, that's where I got. That's when I got sober. I was so sick. I was 120 pounds. Yeah, and I'm 250 right now. But I was $120, and my liver was failing, and my kidneys were failing, and I hadn't used the bathroom in 40 days or something like that, 30 plus days. And so I had to go to the hospital, and I was really trying to come off, of any kind of chemical dependency stuff, and using medically assisted, right? And I weaned off of that and really drank myself off of it, to be honest with you. And I know that I never recommend that, and I could never recommend that, but that realistically is one of the things that I used, was alcohol, to come off of other medicines, other opiates, which, most of my friends died or went to prison. So, it was lonely at first, and I was in from somebody who had been talking to everybody. When I got clean, I mean, it was like, like Lamp was gone. I don't know if you know anything about his story. He was gone. Everybody was gone, and my wife was like, man, you seem to know all these people, but like, you don't have anybody to call. I'm like, yeah, they all just left. They're all gone. And, she's my people. She rides. It's my favorite person in the world. So, but
fortunate.
Anyway, yeah, it was time consuming. So I took that job, working all the time for $10 an hour. Well, it might have been $12. It doesn't matter what it was. It was something for 16 hours. Six.
A lot of work.
Yeah. That's what they had. Hours. They had a lot of work. They were charging an immense amount, and they were paying us next to nothing because we had a specific type of background that didn't allow them to give us opportunities, or we weren't afforded the normal opportunities.
Ultimately, because they could.
Yes, that's right. And later, I gave a lot of people jobs to overcome that obstacle. A couple hundred people specifically that were felons. I gave them jobs paying much better than I could find.
Yeah.
And got them tools, got them set up in the right track. Some of them are doing great, and they have big businesses, and you know what I mean? I'm not going to get into who they are, but they were awesome. And some of them really struggled, and some of them died, and that's just part of the game. I mean, you just keep playing, and we got them out of, when they would go to recovery houses, specific ones take felons when they leave the prisons in town, and those guys are very close, near and dear, some of the guys who own those houses. And so known them for a very long time. And so we would get them up on their feet, get them rocking and rolling. I ended up leaving that job finally when my wife started making money as a real estate agent. She started to kind of truck a little bit, and so I left there and was like, I'm going to start doing lawn care on my own, because the only two skills I had was metal fab and lawn care, and I really can't sell metal fab unless you're making money. Like that's what it is. Like, you know what I mean? If you're making money on woodworking, that's when you can make more money on woodworking. But until you're making money on woodworking, you can't make more money. But the metal fab is the same exact thing, right? Like in the same thinking, right? So I took a job for an old friend who just got out of prison, had started working with a bank, resulting from a big company that his granddad used to own. And they got a contract with a company that made, I think they made $100 billion or something last year. It was one of the largest netting companies in the country last year.
Wow. And
we ran about 30 million at a time, about every 3 months or something. We'd push through about 30 million, and which to Louisville's little economy, that's a lot of money. And to me, just coming out of crazy,
it's a shit ton of money.
It's a lot of money. Yeah, to be like, have a credit card where you can just go and fucking swipe whatever the fuck you want. Like we were the number one purchaser at Lowe's, and they gave us 2 t-shirts, and my wife wears them to sleep in because they're extra large, but when I washed them, they shrank down into like these tiny little t-shirts. And I'm like, we spent like $100 million with you guys in the last 6 months, and you guys are sending us this bullshit. Oh my God. Like, give us a dinner. Send us over a dinner or something. Like, give us a deal. Give us another % off on this shit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, actually, I went and did a landscaping job for a guy that was a friend, and I got done with the landscaping job, and there were a couple guys with me, and I kind of ran them around, but they were real close friends, ironically, who were just trying to help me get on my feet. And he was like, man, I saw that you were taking care of that business, and we needed this spot filled. And it was like the top spot, ironically. It wasn't the middle spot. And he was like, can you run this many guys? You know what I mean? We've got like, I think we had like 50 guys or something when I started, who all had an independent team. We got up to around 88 guys with independent teams. So, you know, I mean, that you can expound that out. Some of the guys had 4 or 5 guys on a team, and some of them were a little bigger. But generally speaking, they were allowed to get their own trucks, their own names, to start their own LLCs, and we would push them through our projects. They could have all of our projects, and we would push them on to next projects. if they were in recovery and if they were felons. And we would give other people in recovery opportunities too. And this stuff was 3 years ago. And so
Wow.
everybody's fucking forgotten about it now. You know how this program is. Anybody who's on top is just talking shit about everybody else. And then everybody on the bottom has not been here long enough. And
And it was all construction related stuff? Is
oh
that
yeah,
right?
fuck yeah. It was all plumbing. So my philosophy was
Was it renovations or was it?
yeah, it was all residential renovation. There was a couple. I mean, I think we did like Flanagan's or something like that. We did some other projects like that. A couple places in the mall. I mean, I don't fucking know. We did
just the gist of it. I was just curious.
just an immense amount.
So I'm running around being a handyman now, you know, in a one-man
awesome.
show and
Well-
go fix somebody's toilet or go fix somebody's leaky faucet or,
That's a great gig.
you know, and just
Well,
running
and
one-man
I've got
show, man, my own deal.
You want to? I mean, and I hate to say this, but I might be able to get you a little gig not too far from here. On Buttontown,
Gufford Road?
Gudford Road at the end. If
It's
you
just
have any
right down the
interest,
road.
it's just floor joists and shit like that. I can show you what to do if you don't. I mean, really.
Yeah, I'm staying pretty good and busy. Dad was a home inspector, and I've been
Oh, that's
followed
great.
along
That's great.
him all my life. He was in construction, and he did a whole bunch
awesome.
of other different things and taught me how to fix stuff. So when I was a little kid and we'd go to so-and-so's house to fix a washing machine or to whatever, you know, hell, might be a room addition on this thing or it might be, and Dad had other buddies. And I was an engineer for 28 years and got laid off in March.
Yeah.
And
Where?
at Boat Power. It was Henry
Oh,
Boat
yeah.
Machine Company a long time ago. And actually, it's a blessing. It was something that just wasn't suiting me anymore at all. You know, which wasn't working for me. You know, but that security of that paycheck and insurance and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah,
I have
yeah,
my
it's a
arms
mother,
around it.
yeah.
You couldn't rip me off of it. God did. He
Yeah.
said, "Okay, enough," and it pulled me off of that. And so since then, I've been doing this handyman gig and making wood out here since then.
Well, I think that's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, and I feel at home now.
That's
you know,
right.
I got
And-
time to do this
and you-
podcast. I got time to run those kids around where they need to be. I'm not under anybody else's deal. You know, I'm not on somebody else's when telling me when to show up and when to go home. And so, I'm
That same
digging
thing,
it.
that same exact thing is exactly what we did, and we just had a bunch of the work. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
We just-
yeah. If you have a way to get those leads and get into where the work is, that's the bigger
Yeah.
thing is to
So
get that to happen. And so, yeah, you could.
They owned a bunch of
through some
banks,
jobs.
right? And so a couple years ago, and this is right when the economy started to reboom, and we pushed out like the majority of the renovation houses. And so whether people want to negotiate that or not, everybody knew who the big dick in town was. I mean, it just is what it is. I mean, if you were in the renovation, we just saw each other. If you were in the renovation game and we didn't fucking know each other, then you weren't in the renovation game.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I was very generous. We gave every single fucking person that came in front of me and said, I need work. And so
That's great, man. I mean,
well, I know. So what we used was, and I'm not going to get in the weeds about this, but there was a couple banks around the country that were using a whole bunch of funds for older people to store their money, and they were doing diversifying their portfolios and allowing them to get, large volume portfolios so they could get distressed portfolios, and they would do portfolio dumps in specific areas through a big company, and we just had ties with that big company socially. And so we could see essentially all of the foreclosures prior to them getting to the bank to go through foreclosure. So then we know what the buyout number looks like. I mean, and there's just opportunity there, and they would just be honest with us, candid, and they would, we would be honest with them about where we were at. And they sell off those portfolios as best they can, right, to try and recoup the money that they've got dumped into them.
yeah.
And so that was it. I mean, that's all we fucking did. We did that as much of the fucking that shit as we could. We did there was other projects going on. We had just rocking and rolling. And that when I say that about the renovations, it makes me feel like my ego is huge, but we were just working all the fucking time, two cell phones ringing just straight through, you know what I mean? And just, hey, you know what I mean? And if I know the number, if it goes to voicemail, just leave me a voicemail. And the funny thing is I've got an opportunity now that looks like a $10 billion portfolio in the same sort of facet, right?
Wow.
And in Louisville, or potentially in Louisville. I mean, right now it's based out of, it's an international portfolio. And so I have not done anything mean to any of those people. I've treated them all very nice, even regardless, in the same fashion, right? And, winter is coming, and I hate to be like that. I will treat them with love and kindness, and I hope that treat me, with respect, but the ones who are shitty, the ones who got their, heads real big, and, like some people, I gave them fucking their first 70 fucking flooring jobs, and they talk down to me, you know what I mean, all the time, because I'm not hustling right now. I'm working in a different field, and it's about to come, the piper will be paid, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate to be like that. And I don't really know how else to handle it, but if the opportunity arises, I'm going to seize it, especially if I get to stay, I get to finish my degree, and my wife gets everything that she wanted. Then it's what I love to do, is grow. So then I'm really torn, right? Like, then I need to really sit down with my sponsor, and because like one of my sponsees runs runs operations on for like a big auto industry plant. He's very successful. He does a very good job, and like we talk about that stuff, and I talk to my sponsor about stuff, and like that's sort of how it goes a lot of times. Like, hey, I'm getting shit on while I'm the little guy, and I know it's not for long. And because God has provided for me. I left a charity thing today. We were at Make-A-Wish last night. I will continue to be of service to the people around me as best as I can, and I will never stop. And I believe that we are given opportunities to become successful in different ways in order to give back to the people around us. And so we will continue to give.
Yep. Yep. And when you're doing that, when you're on that path of service and stuff, those other things work out for you somehow.
Yeah, right.
I don't understand how that's
them
spiritual axiom kind of things that, I don't know. But when I'm doing this, all the rest I don't have to worry about. It seems to have a lot of extra money. No.
I don't have a lot of extra money no matter what the fuck I do.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, when I had that comfortable job sitting in an engineer chair, I was making quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
But
I know, it's same thing.
So now I'm here, and I'm making it, and I'm okay, and I'm happy, and I sponsor a lot of guys, and I do a lot of stuff, and I'm turning away work because I go walk and look at it and go, or I go, I don't think I want to do that job. Because I don't really want to get hooked up with somebody who's going to be a pain in my ass. Yeah. And if I get that vibe off of you, I usually pass.
No, I get you.
If I can't stand back and look at it after I'm done and go, that was a good job, I don't do it.
Yeah.
I'm not into going and doing stuff that just cobbing stuff together just so that they're, okay. That's not my gig. So,
and I'll tell you exactly what the job on Gutford is that, this gets into the weeds, but there was termite damage. The termite treatment has occurred. They need the floor joists just sistered together. Really, it's just going to be somebody sistering all those getting down in a crawl, and with some, 2x10s or whatever the joists, probably 2x8s, and just marrying them together. That's it. And just, you probably don't have the joist hanger or anything. It's probably all sitting on a header plate. I haven't looked at the pictures of the inspection. I just know that we were having a little bit of trouble. And when I drove out here tonight, I was like, damn, he lives right next to Guthrie.
Yeah, it's just right down the road, just a little bit.
So maybe we'll see. And I'll let you and my wife talk. But so anyway, those are the fundamental things. So and I don't know. Anyway, and I'll sort of, I guess we're running out of time. I'll probably pick up pace here, but so that's what I did. I just kept doing the best I could, and the biggest opportunity I've ever gotten was I did a drywall patch for now this is so counterproductive, right? Like people in recovery were saying this is so fucking stupid, right? Like my sponsor at the time was not on board with it, but we would do older people who were handicapped and sick. We would do their work for free. We would just eat it all, and I just couldn't do it. You know what I mean? We had too much money in the pot. We were getting treated too well, and ironically, one of the deals that we got was out of just generosity from somebody like that. As soon as they left and they offered me a job to come with them, they took over Houston and Atlanta and Dallas and Orlando and Detroit, and they've still got a small presence here and a variety of other, cities. So we decided to stay, and I took that over, and we got another opportunity that was, the best we've ever done. And in one deal. You know what I mean? One contract signature. And so I've been very grateful. I mean, and then the house that we were renting when we got sober and where I got engaged, we bought and we rent that out. And today there was a little plumbing issue and we had the drain snaked and it's fixed. And we've got another property that, you know, it's funny how fucking life works, right? Like, so, and, you know, well, anyway, I'm not going to get into it, but we get to share an opportunity with other guys in recovery who are struggling to get to a better place. And so that's nice.
Yeah, that is great. Yeah.
And
recovery needs you guys doing that, no doubt.
Well, and you're helping me, you know, and we all need to help each other.
Yeah.
Like, I can't.
Yeah, but getting back up on your feet in that workplace, coming off of felonies and different things like that, man, that's a rough spot. That's a specifically rough spot to try and get, you know, the ball rolling again. And just like we said earlier, that thing about having a job to get another one,
man,
if somebody doesn't open the door for you, you can be pretty stuck. You can be pretty stuck with that, trying to go around. I have a felony now.
Yeah.
And part of why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Sure. No, it's a bitch.
Going out and getting a job in my old capacity.
Yeah.
Doesn't work that well when they see that.
Yeah. I totally respect, like, because, you know, I totally get that. So,
yeah, but that's service, you know, and that's the whole thing, you know. And service can look like a lot of different things, you know. And yeah, it might be helping you with your livelihood, and some people might want to be like critical of that because it looks like maybe you're taking advantage of something or you're doing, you know. But you know, my sponsor gave me a new pair of glasses, just like old Chuck C says, and I look at things differently.
People talk so much shit saying that we were opportunistic and taking advantage of the newcomer.
I can imagine.
And like, I gave him
a job.
I know, $25 an hour. You fucking come to work and I teach you how to do a new job, you know, like, fuck, man, like, you poor fucker, you know. And I mean, I had to work for $10 an hour. I was loving it. I've worked for $4.75.
Yeah.
And, you know, we would start them off. My policy is this, and it will always be this, is you start at $10 an hour. And I'll see where we're at the end of the first week, because I do not believe that anybody who's not going to work hard for $10 an hour will work hard for $20 an hour. And whether they want to agree with my perspective on that, they will be paid twice as much if they shut the fuck up and do the best they can, so I can see that they're capable. And I'm just like, look, you got this. I want to empower you. Like, let me get you some guys around you. You know what you're doing. You're going to work hard. Like, let me know if you run into trouble. We'll get you some other people over here and whatever. That is easy for me, right? Like, but what is hard for me is when I'm too big for that shit, you know, and then it's like, well, I don't know how to fucking help. I'm doing the best I can to get myself on. You know what I mean? Like, really?
Yeah.
I'm struggling. I had a really hard test this week. I was emotionally drained, you know, and like, or whatever facet of that it really equates to is the confusing. That's why I have to continue to go, because I really want to just be very nice and caring and take care of everybody. And I really do. Deep down, I want to be like able to give everybody everything all the time. It would be the best life, but I don't have that opportunity. And so when I talk, you know, I'm like, I've got 2 sponsees with 4th DUIs. I've got one with a DUI 3rd felony, you know, and they think I can help them get out of their legal trouble. And I'm like, I'm not a fucking lawyer, bro. Like, I love you. I think you fucked up and you didn't mean to, and 4 times.
Yeah.
You know, that 4th time you didn't mean to.
There's a 12 qualities or 12 something others of sponsorship that I picked up off of an email that I get every morning, and one of them is I can't fix your problems.
I don't know how.
I'm incapable.
Yeah, I can't fix my own.
Yeah, so I actually get that in front of, you know, and I kind of, you talk about contract. I kind of have a contract with my sponsees, you know, and I say, look, here's the stuff. You know, I will take you through this work and see that guy and that guy and that guy. That's what they did. You know, so see if you want that, you can have that.
Yeah.
But you got to do this. But all the problems that you have, I'll be sympathetic. If there's a chance once in a while I can actually help you, you know, I'm handy. I can do a few things.
Yeah. Well,
but I can't fix your damn problems. and as long as getting on, but you're right, man. People come in here with another line out there. You know, problems piled up so deep we can't even begin to believe we can solve them all. Mm-hmm. I seem to have started doing this work and let those problems go. and most of mine have vanished. Most of them, not all, but most of them have gone along, have disappeared.
Well, and enjoying that part of it is like the hardest growth, right? Like for somebody like me, it's like, and that's something that I really like today, is it because it will get better. I mean, inevitably, like, you know what I mean? Things are going to pick up, and I'm going to have a different perspective on, like, maybe tomorrow, maybe in a week, maybe in a month, who knows how long. But if I can have a little bit of faith that this is where I'm supposed to be, and like, this is the hardest thing that I've been trying to cope with now, is like, I feel like God wants me to teach everybody what it looks like to fail out of law school and still be an active member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And like, I don't believe that, but that's like the underlying, like, what is God trying to teach me? And I hope it is how to like be faced with adversity, and then to be an impactful, strong, independent person that can, walk through life and show other people that, you can still be good to people during the down times, and you can still be strong even if you feel weak, and those things. And that is what I get out of recovery the most, is that like, this is just where I'm supposed to be in the situation where I'm supposed to be in. And if I'm willing to learn something, then maybe I don't have to keep doing the same problems. Maybe I'll get another problem.
Yeah.
God will give me something else.
Yeah.
He hasn't given me too much money to fucking handle yet, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that perspective. The podcast that I was trying to do is just, oh, what? Oh, to blow my nose. Yeah. Sorry. Anyway, the podcast, the reason that I was thinking about doing something independently was about spiritual experiences. So we've talked about a couple of them. But,
I think it's cool. I would, there's a little thing on here when Anchor is one of my sponsors.
yeah.
And part of the thing is to do a little thing for them on here, and read a little reading. And heck, I think everybody, if you have a drive to do that, man, get your voice heard. And, like same thing on some of this other stuff. There's some people listening to this podcast, and I'm getting some feedback. I'm getting some pretty cool feedback from a lot of places. I got a feedback not the other day from a girl in Africa had listened to the podcast and Facebook friended me. And but I get to participate in my recovery by doing this, and I think I would do this if nobody was listening. Another thing I get where so back to that podcast thing is that throw it at the wall, and see what happens. There is a big thing about this persistence. This is definitely a game of persistence. This podcasting game, yes. You got to continue to be consistent and persistent. Put out consistent content on a regular basis, and that's not so easy some days. When my podcast guests cancel, and I'm standing here without new, because I don't want to either get like real stale content. I don't want to do a podcast with you and tell you it's going to come out in March. Not that I could really do that. I'm not that busy, but so I try to stay relatively fly by the seat of my pants kind of thing, where when you do a podcast here, the worst it's going to be is a couple of weeks out. Great. So sometimes when my podcast guests decide they're not going to come, then I either have to invent some content, and now and again just do some musings. Think about what's going on in my life, and I talk about it in this microphone with no guest here. But back to that, so circle back around to that is that, I think I'm being called to do this. I go talk to a young guy and I talk about, listen to a speaker tape, and they're kind of, yeah, whatever. Did you ever listen to podcasts? Oh yeah, I listen to podcasts. Like, well, it's really the same thing. And also I'm getting to preserve some people. There's some old timers around here around town that's got a great deal of knowledge. And I've been fortunate enough to get a few of them on here.
That is great. That
wouldn't have been heard probably because they're not circuit speakers and they're not, running around doing all that necessarily. But we get to capture their recovery because for whatever reason it seems to be one of these spiritual axiom kind of things that somebody needs to hear your story, right? Whatever that is, there's somebody out there that won't really hear me. They'll hear you, and there's somebody out there that hears me and they don't hear you, and so somebody hears this guy and we get them out here. And the other side of that is I get to sit here across this table and make a new friend about once a week.
Yeah, that's good.
So one of the things I like to talk about before we get too close to end is like I have a thing where my sponsor had me do this miracle list. Early on in recovery, some really cool stuff was happening in my life, and my sponsor said, you should make a list. And I started. And now I have in my phone, which gets backed up, a list of miracles that happened. And now and again, I will tell my sponsor something, and he will go put it on the list. And it's not like, these are miracles to me, and the book says they're there. The book says it'll happen. So I like to talk about those things. There's stuff like I know one of them I hear is you and your wife got sober together. I would count that as a miracle. So I like to touch on those things because we do a lot of war story in here. Mm-hmm. I also like to come up and look at the front end, what's happening. And as a result of this stuff, you're going to school. What else can you think of that's been happening at?
I'm very lucky.
Share some juice. That's see my juice sign up there.
Yeah,
that's what we call the prana and the life force. And my sponsees, that's another one of the rules I have. When you get this thing and stuff starts happening for you in your life, you are required to share that juice with me.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff. The school is great. The employment opportunities that are coming in front of us are great. The opportunity, I work with LRCC. I don't know if you know any of those guys. Louisville Recovery Community Connection.
I've heard of it.
Which is a group downtown that's helping to get people into houses and things like that, which is very nice. I get to do whatever I want. I retired at 34. Yeah, I don't ever have to, like I was going to buy a plane and my wife was like, is that what you want to do? Because if you want to go to school, then you can't buy a plane right now. And so those were my options. And,
wow.
And we went back to school. I worked very hard. I try to study as hard as I can because I don't, we could do what I've been doing and never worry, and that's confusing as a young man in recovery who came from very poor nothing and a lot of debt a couple years ago, and to have been given gifts that are different. And it's very funny, right? Like, because people will disagree on what a good construction company looks like. People will disagree on what a good house renovation job looks like, what a good bathroom tile job looks like. And some of those little eyes, those little thoughts, those little analytics, can actually make $400,000 for you in a couple weeks. You know what I mean? And some of those analytics can lose you $100,000 in a couple weeks. And I don't seem to do the loss of the 100,000. We don't seem to have that as one of our issues. So we've had an opportunity to kind of get good at stuff where there's, or whatever. I don't mean to use numbers like that. Whatever, 30,000 or whatever the numbers are, whatever the metric is for somebody, whatever their renovation project looks like, whatever their budget looks like. We've been very lucky. And we have some lake properties that we're going to be developing down at Ruff, which will be 26 places, which will be nice. We have a couple places downtown that we've thought about buying, and we've got some other rental properties that we get to maintain and keep. And I get to talk to senators and whoever the fuck I want to, really, whenever I want, except for some reason, that's like the funniest thing. Like, I could talk to some people that are really powerful, but I can't get motherfucking like my sponsees on the phone for shit. And like, at work, I'm looked at like this, like I'm killing it, right? Like, they all want to see what's going on most of the time. But in like recovery, I'm like, I feel like I just like want to give a shout out, like, hey, I don't know why that is. I don't know whether it's I'm young or by the way I dress or what the dynamic is that makes it confusing. My language is different. I use a lot of profanity, and I don't really know. But anyway, I'm very grateful. My wife and my family, and that when if you're loading this up soon, then there's news coming It'll probably be out, but we did not think we were going to get to have a family, and we found out we're having a little girl last week.
Well,
And we're
congratulations! That is
Thank you.
another one.
We're not very. We don't put our business out very much.
Uh-huh.
We try to support other people and raise them up, and so it's confusing. That's confusing on how to tell people that. So I want to so I was we have an upstairs master, and I was gonna vault the ceilings, and I was gonna do these chandeliers that kind of had this drapery over top of the baby's carriage. You know what I mean? And that's whatever. That's in my head. That's immediately where I fucking go. We're gonna develop this, and my wife is no, and I need her to be like that. But when it was like a boy, it was I could put him down and whatever, rugged. You got to get your shit together, But when I found out it was a girl, my mind immediately went to a different place. So that's where I've been at. It's just been, you know what I mean? It's been kind of, that's confusing. I'm doing the best I can with that. We've got school coming up. I mean, I really don't know. I mean, if you knew some of the ins and outs that we haven't talked about, for me, be a lawyer in a couple months or in a year and a half. If I get through school, if God doesn't want to teach you guys what it looks like to fail, which he hasn't yet. And I'll try hard. It's so confusing to go to school, because I left a job where I was the boss, right? Everybody. Yeah. And then I went to school, and I haven't been in school in a very long time, so I'm not very good at it. And I'm the very bottom, you know what I mean? So now finding a way to and then I'd leave there sometimes, and I'd go to work where I've got to be back at the top, and then I'd go to AA where I'm supposed to be right in the middle. Yeah. And I'm and sometimes they bleed over.
Yeah. Yeah, it does get you back kind of in this chameleon kind of feeling, probably, or at least what I could think is that, here I am now trying to fill these different roles that are much different than one another, and I feel like maybe, and don't let me put words in your mouth, but I feel like, I got to be this guy here, and I got to be this guy there, and I got to be this guy there, and I remember being that guy a long time ago in the madness. Today, one of the things I can say for myself is I'm pretty much the same dude no matter where I'm at. I don't really have a lot of different roles to play today. And I can see where you're at, because it's just where you're at today. That's facts of life. It's not like there's some escape from that.
I know. And I want to just be good. I want to take care. I pray for all my classmates every day, and maybe not every day, but every time we have a test, I pray for them all to do well and pass and be happy with their grades and give them the opportunities they've always wanted. But we don't have the same goals. I want to, we could realistically put some pressure on the market when I get out of school. I don't know how long it takes some of my peers at school to do that. We just have we have access to a group of people that never fucking work, to be honest. I'm around people who've never worked, never going to work sometimes. And one of my circles of friends that talk shit, and they're just different, and they and then I'm in another circle that, the thing the board meeting we were at today, and trying to help and get back, and my history is built around trying to help the people that deserve it, deserve a shot.
Yeah.
And so,
lifting other people up, I think, is what we're called really to do. And I think that's what the universe is not really everything's going to feel like a fight until I figure that, until I make that a piece of a real heavy element of my life. Once I started helping other people primary purpose kind of thing going on in my life,
100%.
Then the rails got greased, and a lot of other things got a lot easier. And now, if it's whatever, but it's just, I'm just not fighting. I'm just not in a wad the way I used to be, or I felt like I was, in a constant. There was a point in my life where I felt like I was under a constant, just grunt.
That's
trying to make stuff work, and today
cool.
I'm not. Today I'm just, today my skates are just gliding along, and I just kind of check out what the ice looks like where I'm at the moment.
That's where me and my wife were at right? Like prior to me going back to law school, it was like we'd go to Hawaii, we'd go to wherever the fuck we want, and like chill. And now it's like, because like I always want to pay all my bills off first. I want to pay the houses off. I want to pay all this shit off. So we stay as low in equity. I mean, you know what I mean? We don't owe anything in our equity on any of the properties. You know, most of them are paid off. You know, and it's just about stay low on the. You know what I mean? But then when I don't work for 2 years, and I mean, you really start to see the difference.
Sure.
And you know, I mean, I might not have been making just killer money, but I mean, I was working. I was working the same way as we talked about earlier. If I was making $10 an hour, I just got to work 80 hours a week. You know, if I was, you know,
yeah,
if I'm whatever, all you do by telling me how much I'm making is tell me how much I'm working. So anyway, so you know, I'm doing the best I can. That's some of the juice. There's a lot of stuff. We got lake houses. We get to take friends down there. We've got a jet ski. I've got a motorcycle.
Toys.
Yeah, we got toys. We will have a plane, but maybe not for a couple more years. And like that's, I don't know if that's stupid, you know. And like I don't have anybody really around who would tell me if it was stupid to try and get something like that. And so that's why I went to law school, because I didn't want to make a bad choice. You know, I fear feeling stupid, you know, and fucking up, you know, like because that's. So I was like, I'm going to go to, you know what I mean? And I also fear having fun. Like, I don't really feel like I don't know what, I have had so many negative experiences. I feel so guilty about so many of the things that I've done. And I really try not to, and I work very hard to get back because of it. And,
yeah, and yet still don't feel deserving.
In no way.
Yeah.
We will continue to get back.
Yeah, I watched this Fonzie get a gift handed to him the other day, you know, and that's what he said. He said, I don't feel like I deserve it. So can you imagine what the universe would give you if you'd walk around thinking you deserved what you're getting?
Yeah, I know. That's funny.
I mean, keep that open, you know. I mean, that's us. That's who we are. We think we've crossed some boundary where we don't deserve things anymore or something. I don't get it. It's a typical person in recovery struggle. As soon as somebody, I don't know. There's also another one. Bob Earl is one of my favorite speakers. I'm a speaker tape junkie, and he says we have this little thing where we somebody gives us somebody offers us something that works or is good to them. Like you like something that's working for you, and you offer it to me. I immediately reject it.
Yeah.
And you're right off. You know?
Yeah.
You go, and I mean, and I can even go so far as that. Like I think about the times when somebody's walked around with like a tray of like cookies. And they come by me, and I go, no, I'm all right. And I said, the fact is, I want the whole damn tray of cookies. But I got to be too cool, and I'm undeserving, and I'm, no thank you. You know, and that's what they did whenever I started getting in, when I was in a whole bunch of trouble and people were handing me this 12-step solution. I said, no thank you, I got this. I appreciate you, but no thank you. Until I got to where I was in such a pinch that was the last escape hatch that I could possibly see, and I said, "Okay, I'll do it." And my life completely changed as a result of that. But this whole thing about not deserving things is a weird dynamic we deal with.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'll ever get past it. But I know my little baby deserves it. And so me to be a good father and to work hard and to pay my dues and not give up on working and shit just because I, you know, feel like I might have earned it or some fucked up. You know, we all work the same, just as hard. I think everybody gets paid based on their level of responsibility. Now that could be like offensive to some people. I've worked for $10 an hour in the last, couple weeks. But my responsibility level was low. I had to read through shit, and I had to do X amount of things, and I didn't really have that big of a fallback. And I just hoping to find new ways to get more responsibility and continue to grow. It's been I feel better at different times about a lot of stuff in my life, but a lot of my friends didn't really make it out. You know what I mean? Everybody.
I hear
ex, my best friend, several family members, so it just, a lot of people, like I got a buddy, and right now, like I joke around, like, do you have JPay? Because I'm like trying to, because put money on people's books around the holidays, you have to have an app, and they've got to sign you into it or whatever. And I'm always like trying to use theirs because you don't want to give the credentials because it sucks being on the registry. And so like I'm always like, okay, can I get you to like JPay this money over? And so it like gives me a funny perspective on everything when I'm like, especially in the meetings when I'm like talking to really tough people, like people are like, too tough for me, and it's like, you don't know where I came from, all you know is I ended up here, and who knows where we're gonna end up going, right? Like, so that's the beauty part of the back end of the thing I was telling about is there was a time when it was normal, and then there was a time when other people noticed, and then there was a time when we noticed. The opposite to me of that is when we start to do prayer and meditation and we don't notice, and then everybody else starts to notice, and then finally we find out like what it was all about.
That's a good point. I like that.
Yeah, and so those are helpful to me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't ever notice that I was getting worse and worse and worse and worse.
Everybody else did.
People started to. Yeah. Like people that were fucked up.
Yep. And when I started getting better, I didn't know I was. And other people were going, damn, Dan, you look a lot better.
Yeah. And so I just try to, I mean, I've got several sponsees now. And I at the end of my first year sober, I had 10 sponsees. And I was mowing the roost, and I mopped the floor out there every Friday night. And we put the chairs up and put the tables up, and they got it back out. And I would do 2 meetings on Saturday and 2 meetings on Sunday. And I do 6 meetings a week now. And people are always like, everybody in my support, or not everybody, but several people in my support group think that like 2 or 3 is good enough. And I'm like, man, I'm not rolling the fucking dice. You all roll the dice. Anybody who wants, I went to a lot of meetings when I first got sober. There's nothing in my whole fucking body that makes me think for 1 second that I can drink I wish I could. I love the joke of, if I could drink like normal people, I'd be drunk all the time. But like I am fucking thoroughly aware that if I take a drink, I'm fucked, and right now I got some shit to lose, if I get fucked up right now, shit is hitting the fan. There's gonna be a plane flying over this fucking building, and I'm dropping bottles of liquor out, you know what I mean? Like,
I'm under no illusion either, man. And I know when I'm talking about these great things that happened in my life, and I can run down my miracle list and talk about the cool stuff and all the time, I know that gets pulled, that rug. I know that rug gets pulled out from underneath of me very quickly. That it's not, I'm under no illusion about why that stuff is going on. And I know exactly how to make it all stop right now.
Yeah. It's the cornerstone.
Yeah.
It's holding the fucking arch up.
Yep.
We ain't got it. We ain't got nothing else.
Yep.
But another brick in that arch. But anyway, so that's why I continue to go to meetings. I continue to tell my sponsees they should be going to meetings. I had a new guy call me today. I sent him over to one of my sponsees because I'm sponsoring one of his friends, and I just don't want to be sponsoring 2 guys in a halfway house that are going to be talking shit back and forth. And I've done it before, and sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. My sponsee needs a new sponsee, and so he's got 6 years.
Yeah, it's the best thing to do, man. That's why we're part of this, man. Yeah, you feed them over to that guy, feed them over to this guy.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, but yeah, so now.
Well, cool. You got any final thoughts you want to throw out here to tell people if you got a message to send in a couple words, a couple sentences or whatever? I call it a concluder.
Concluder? Yeah, I don't. No, I don't. I'm trying to watch out for spiritual experiences. So if you find some, get them to me somehow if you can. Because, I really do want to share them. And, just like this, sharing people's stories. I would like to get on a couple opportunities where because sometimes I need a little bit of love, in the middle of my day when I hate myself and I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but clearly something. And for people to realize that was part of the growth that needed to happen in order for them to share later or to be a part of somebody else's life in the way that they were supposed to be, gives me strength to kind of keep eating shit when I don't want to. But also I got to give it back. That's the motherfucker for me. If I don't give it back if I don't keep giving it away, then it don't keep coming in.
Yeah.
And
Another line, it's a limitless load as long as I continue to manage the rest of my life and give the entire product away.
100%. I believe that. I will continue to do the best I can to try and help the next guy. And if, who the fuck knows? I mean, he could be lying, but it's helped my life. You know, it's made my life different in a good way. I mean, that's the first question. I always tell new people in recovery to try and remember where you're at and what I could have said. I know I'm not saying what I should have said, but what do you think I should have said? Because I don't fucking know what it is, and it's been so long since I was dope sick or so long since I was hungover that like this is the best I got.
Yeah,
it's as close as I get to trying to be on somebody else's level and say, I love you. You're doing a good job. You don't have to hate yourself, and we're going to move in the right direction. And that's really all I'm trying to say, and I'm failing miserably half the time. Of just saying, I got your back, and get your chin up, and we're going to go, which is the same shit motherfuckers tell me. And that's the only thing I know that works. And get in the book, try and help somebody. And anyway, that's all I got, man.
Well, cool, man. I really appreciate you coming in here and doing this. Appreciate you helping me go on the firefighting expedition or potential firefighting expedition. That's a new thing for the podcast. Something always seems to happen new now and again, and I can smile about that one for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. So we'll wrap her up. 12-Step Spiritual Recovery is a book by James Christopher Cone. It is on Amazon. Have meetings in Louisville. Spiritualunderground.org. That's where you can find show notes and whatnot having to do with this podcast. DTMWW.net for my woodworking and handyman stuff. And Darren Frank's music wrapped around this podcast. Hey, if you're not having a blast in your recovery, it's your own damn fault. And as always, thank you all for allowing me to participate in my recovery in this manner today. Peace out.
Tried to be just who they wanted. Always tried to do everything they said. Only did the things they would approve of. Lock away all your dreams inside your head. Year after year you try to be a good girl. They never failed to point out when you were bad. Stuck to the program like a robot. Became a trophy for mom and dad. But inside you want more. Everything you've been waiting for. Looking for that open door. So every day in your bed, in your heart just keeps saying, let go and fly. Let go and fly. Spread your wings to the sky. Since you was a little boy, they told you, suck it up and be a man.